I think we are now super live. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the weekly Vega Fairground Jam or Testnet Jam. My name is Dag or Dagan. I'm Vega Community Mega Boss. I do a lot in the Vega Plus Ambassador Program, and today we have a special session live from Amsterdam, where we have a big conference going on. But before we go into that, some background on what exactly this is, why are we here today? This is an ongoing series. It usually takes place every Thursday at 6 p.m. British Summer Time or GMT +1. Where each week we take a deep dive into an aspect of the Vega protocol with a member of someone from the Vega team. Sometimes we get special guests in from the outside, and sometimes we change the time or we change the format depending on who we have on. So this is one of those special weeks. We have an interesting guest, Josh, who is a dev from Rysk Finance. Choosing to say super anon. He's also one of a former Vega hackathon winner, and we'll talk a little bit about that a bit later on. And I'll let him introduce himself as well, but give me a sec for some quick housekeeping, a little overview of what we're going to be doing. So, as I said, today is a little bit different. We'll be going over all things crypto, Vega hackathons, Rysk Finance, Josh's project, and most importantly, ETHAmsterdam, which we are live from today. So as always, some quick housekeeping before we begin. Whilst Josh is chatting with me, you're free to ask questions in the Twitch chat, and he'll answer those at the end of the call, or if they're particularly interesting and relate to what we're talking about, we'll answer them live as we go along. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the initial announcement. So let's begin. Josh, could you introduce yourself quickly in whatever way you think is best? Over to you.
Hello. Good to be here. Thanks for having me. So yeah, I'm Josh. I'm a developer at Rysk Finance. I develop the smart contracts, and yeah, I've been with Rysk full time for about 3 months now since the inception of the project. And before then, it was a hacky side project, something I found interesting and thought it was a great idea. Fairly new to the crypto space myself. Only been involved in crypto circles for maybe just over a year now. And I've come from a web development background as well. So it's been a pretty fast jump from Web 2 to Web 3. Loving the ride. Yeah, a lot of excitement. Very happy to be here.
Very happy to have you. That's quite a cool intro. So I guess Rysk Finance is quite a new project. We'll talk a bit about it more in a bit later. But it seems with only 3 months of you guys being live or being public, there's some early alpha for us to get from this call. So we'll see what you have to say, or if we can get anything out of you. Maybe not. But let's begin with your relation to Vega, as you were one of the earlier hackathon winners we had I think maybe a year back. So could you let us know which hackathon did you get involved in? What did you build on Vega? And why did you decide to build that?
Yeah, so it was an Encode hackathon run by an organization in London, Encode Club. Big up to them. And yeah, so me and a partner, Gibran, who's also a member of Rysk Finance, we sort of collaborated, and I was personally looking for more exposure to decentralized finance, to learn what was going on. Previous projects I'd done before this were kind of in the NFT space, and it was literally one or two. So I was keen to get my hands dirty with some finance stuff. It worked quite well because Jib was already getting proficient at some of the back ends of smart contract stuff. I had my web development background, and so I was able to handle some of the front end stuff. So it was quite a nice pairing. We knew Vega had expressed some interest in having some sort of a leaderboard system for their traders, and so we decided to give that a shot. Basically, the two of us basically pulled data from the Vega API, collated it, and created a leaderboard of all of the traders that were executing transactions on Vega, measuring their profits and losses, things like their Sharpe and Sortino ratios, And yeah, it was a really interesting project. I learned a little bit, certainly about the risk metric side of things, and also kind of, I think it was probably the first DeFi protocol I'd had the time to, have a long, hard look at. So it was interesting on that front as well.
Yeah, this it's quite cool that you took the dive from the web development space over to here, and then you got your hands stuck into a hackathon quite early. Because you said you've been in the space about a year and a half, right? And the hackathon was only around a year ago, so you got involved quite early into something where you, like a lot of people say to me, the best way to learn is to just get stuck in, start creating something, find something that needs to be solved, or like a project that you can create, and then start building it. And that seems to be exactly what you did.
Yeah, exactly. So it was actually my second hackathon. The first one, was literally a few months prior to that, and this was, kind of entered it after the first few weeks of, learning about some Web3 fundamentals through Encode. Again, it was Jib and I. Jib had an idea, and I was keen to help out, just get some exposure to the Web3 world in any way possible. And so, yeah, 2021 for me was a year of just kind of hacking away, doing side projects alongside my full-time job as a web developer, and just learning what I could, really. And I've noticed everyone is always so open and so keen to help, which is it's a fantastic community. There's absolutely no shortage of people willing to reach out.
Would you say that's different to the Web2 scene and what you were doing before?
I mean, I think development culture as a whole is very open. I think, by definition, of course, a lot of code is open source and stuff, but I do feel like the Web3 community, I think maybe takes it one step further. There's closer bonds. I've certainly really enjoyed getting to become good friends with people from different protocols. Obviously Vega, yourself, and a few others, which I didn't really have that kind of relationship with in Web2 land, I suppose. You work for a company, you turn up, and you're working with the same people all day, every day, and there's not much kind of integration going on with the wider world, which is very different.
Yeah, on that point, actually, I didn't really expect to be here at ETHAmsterdam right now, but before, when I was here, I was at a DeFi retreat meetup, and there were a bunch of people I met, and they said they were also working in web development on various projects before, and they just got quite interested in the space. And they were two guys from Italy in different cities, and they were both in various Discord servers. They'd only known each other online as two different anonymous people. And they started working together on a project, and then actually ended up moving to the same city and just hanging out and just working on different things there. And they're not only doing that project that they were doing when they were based in Italy, but they're working for a couple of other projects across the globe. And then these people end up meeting, like just unexpected people end up coming into your life from all these different places. And it's quite cool the way that Web3 pulls people together, because it really connects. I mean, I guess you could say this also about the remote working culture and the way things have been post-pandemic. But everything in Web3 is inherently for a global audience. Whatever you're producing is typically not just for the market in your own country, but a market that extends to everyone in the Web3 world, because all they really need is a wallet, an identity, a username, and then they can just get started. So I think that's quite a cool thing about the space, and it really broadens your horizons.
Absolutely. I mean, it's pretty similar to what you just described there. It's pretty similar to how Rysk started out. It was actually the three other members of the team were on the open option protocol Discord channel, and they were having a discussion about options, basically. And three people from three different countries, very far away from each other, both just kind of said, we can do something here. We have an idea. Like, let's just see what happens. And so, that was the beginning of Rysk, really. I came on very shortly after. doing some front end stuff, web development stuff, while the three of us were just sort of like tackling out the idea and the back end and the contracts, and then I learned Solidity myself, and now the four of us kind of handle it equally. So yeah, exactly that. You know, it doesn't take much, and you don't need to be even remotely close to one another.
Yeah, you kind of answered my next question, which is how did Risk Finance begin? What are you guys working on? And why did you, so you were in the open Discord and you guys were looking, you were probably interested in the protocol and what's going on there. So you're always quite interested in decentralized finance. But why Risk? Why decide to create your own thing? And what about Risk is unique? I guess show your protocol if you've got any good things to show.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, the kind of the overarching thesis is that a lot of streams of yield in decentralized finance are either not particularly stable, that you know they can be very correlated to the general wider market, or you know there are some cases where they can even be quite dishonest about the yields that they're providing, and you know they might give a particular figure, and it's a best case scenario figure that doesn't really assume you know the risk that the person depositing into that strategy takes on, and so what we kind of wanted to do was to create a stream of yield that is very much uncorrelated to the market. And you know we've all seen you know those days where the market tanks and everything tanks with it, and then of course people are borrowing less because you know things are looking a little bit more risky, and so people who are lending out their stable coins, whatever, their yield tends to dry up as well because there's no demand on the other side of that. And so you know using options we can basically create a stream of yield that you know doesn't completely dry up in a bear market, and rather should be completely uncorrelated and sustainable. And so it basically does that by acting as a market, an options AMM, and selling almost any option to anyone that wants to buy, and pricing them accordingly to maintain its own kind of market uncorrelated position, which is, for those of you who know your Greeks in options, is all about the delta value. And so it prices those options accordingly to maintain a neutral delta position.
So it's less about risk, because like you hear risk finance, you're like, okay, what can I speculate on? What risk can I take? Or is it like it's more about mitigating risk and making sure people actually have their downside covered during the volatility of the crypto markets that we know all too well for the last few years?
Exactly. So we want to be quite forward and you know honest about the risk that people are taking on, and you know we aim to provide you know in our interface the risk metrics. So you know you've got your beta correlation and your Sharpe and Sortino ratios and that kind of thing, and you know ideally we'd like our our liquidity providers or the people that are depositing into our strategy to be well aware of the risks that they're taking on. And what we aim to provide is the highest stream of return for the least amount of risk, or you know the best risk adjusted returns in the market.
So moving forwards a little bit, is this live now? Is this something that's coming soon? How, if someone was watching this, how would you want them to get involved in the protocol? It's being built right now. Is it early community and it's just kind of trying out? Is it on testnet, or when do you guys hit a point where we can actually start mitigating our risk in the DeFi space?
Yeah, good question. So at the moment we have nothing live yet. We have our audits coming up you know as soon as next week and going into the following month. You know we are aiming to launch if things go to plan, June-ish, potentially July. So, until then, get involved with we've got a Discord channel, follow us on Twitter. We're starting to post a couple of articles to kind of explain at a high level what we do, how we do it. And as things progress, we'll start sort of like diving deeper into a little bit of the more complicated stuff and start talking Greek at you and, really try and get you to understand what it means to be taking on some of this risk.
Okay, that's yeah, I think I've got a good idea, and I've been in Discord for a long time, so if you guys are interested, do check it out and read a bit more about what Rysk are up to. It seems like quite a promising protocol, and yeah, we'll see how things go. But best of luck with what you guys are working on.
Thank you very much.
So moving away from Rysk and to ETHAmsterdam, we're here on the ground. We're here in Amsterdam at the conference. It's a bit different to the usual kind of crypto conferences because it's a bit more decentralized and just side events. There's no mainstream or main thing apart from the main hackathon. What are you doing here, and what is the general vibe? Are you hacking at all? Are you just working on Rysk? Are you just here to network? What brings you to ETHAmsterdam versus staying at home and working? I don't know.
So, to be honest, it's for Rysk. It's basically our time to meet in person and sort of, get our heads down, hash out some of these more complicated ideas that's, maybe just a bit of a pain to try and do over video calls or whatever. So this is actually only our second time meeting in person, which is pretty fun. The first time was at ETHDenver in February. So yeah, that's what we're here for. Basically, we're not participating in the hackathon, but we're certainly hacking on our own protocol. But it's not just about that. It's about seeing, it's already seen so many familiar faces from Denver. It's great to start getting to know people who are working with protocols that we are considering integrating with, networking, connecting, and just generally enjoying what people have to say. There's such a wealth of talent here that you can walk up to anyone and just have the most interesting conversation. So it's a lovely little bubble in a way, and I've been in Amsterdam for 2 days now and thoroughly enjoying it already. But yeah, so the rest of the team arrived today. For the next 5 days, we'll be heads down, cracking out some codes.
Kudos to you guys. And yeah, the second time meeting, that's quite insane because you probably work together every single day online. And I think it's similar for like the Vega team. Like a lot of people work remotely, most of the team. And so it's often like it's only these sorts of big or coordinated meetups where we're actually working together in person. And I actually find you get quite a lot more done when you're all together and you're actually able to discuss big projects and big plans. Like you might get more done if you have all like small things to do. You get more done if you're just at home and working on your own and working intensely. But if you've got to plan the wider projects that involve a lot of different people, it works a lot better when everyone's together and actually you can whiteboard it or brainstorm it and see how things will come together. And when you get just those ideas in real time coming back off what you're saying. And I think you lose a bit of that in like all these Zoom calls. I imagine it's similar for you guys, but I don't know what your take is on it.
Absolutely, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It is just, there's quite a lot of complexity and there's still things we're trying to figure out. And it is just far easier to be able to bounce ideas off one another in real time, or, if you have an idea, just kind of poke the team next to you and say like, how about we try this? And it's not really feasible over voice chat, is it? But also just the environment, it really is kind of designed for exactly this kind of team working. Currently sat in a co-working space and food is provided, so you can sit down with the team and not really have to move for 12 hours. It's perfect.
Sweet. Yeah, usually I'm quite well fed at these things because there's always just like some free food going around. So it's convenient. Is this different to ETHDenver? Like how would you compare the two? Which one do you rate more?
Yeah, interesting question. I feel like I mean, I've not seen an awful lot of what's going on in Amsterdam yet, but I do feel like ETH Denver was maybe a little bit more, I don't know, what's the word? Kind of structured potentially. There was a lot of kind of rooms. You checked in. There was very specific kind of events in the same buildings all the time. All of the events were free, whereas I think a lot of them in ETHAmsterdam is kind of ticketed. But the co-working spaces here seem to be pretty far bigger and better, actually, which is an interesting contrast. So I get the impression ETHAmsterdam has been more about the kind of hackathon and hacking side of things, and maybe potentially a little bit less about the talks. I feel like there were far more talks and activities at Denver, and less so here. More hacking.
Yeah, and I've also I think a similar thing to you. I think ETHAmber was a lot more loud. It's one of the biggest crypto events in all of the world, and they just had everyone there. I mean, even Vitalik turn up, and like his huge gang of followers, and just it was really massive. But both have their own quirks in their own way.
It was interesting. Go on.
No, over to you.
I mean, I kind of in that center of Denver. There was those few blocks where pretty much everyone walking around was there for the conference. There were almost like no locals in that little bubble where the thing was happening. It was quite nucleated, wasn't it?
Yeah, but sometimes we actually get a bad rep for that. Like people they're like, oh no, the crypto people are coming back, or I'm glad they left. I saw some tweets like that. So I guess we have a responsibility to be a little bit better. But I think we had, it was really quite cool. Like everyone was working on different projects. Everyone was really excited. Everyone was doing a lot of talks, and there was always interesting things to learn. One great thing about being at these things is just listening to people and hearing what they're working on. Because even if like they're quiet and they're working on things like down now, you're kind of getting the early alpha, and then you see in like a year's time or two that a lot of these things that people have been talking about or kind of saying that we need to move towards in the industry, like you actually see them come to fruition down the line. So I always find it a good place to get inspired about just like what's going on. Hearing people's thoughts and stuff as well, because you get a lot of contrasting thoughts. I think some people are more you hear like the idealistic people, the mercenaries, and the people that are like kind of just here to build stuff and try out new things, and you get a big mix of all those things. So it helps you form your own reality of what's going on and how the industry is as well. So I quite like them for that sort of insight. There's always lots of different events because all the projects are trying to impress everyone and get people to come to their things to get people to try out their protocol and get more people in their communities. So that's always interesting to see how the projects like fight for people to join. I don't know, it's interesting. My next question is, you've chosen to be a anonymous school, and a lot of people are talking quite a lot online about non-culture and how you need the option to be anonymous at these sorts of events. So firstly, are there many anons? Have you run into people who be like, oh, I thought you've seen them maybe online here and there, but you didn't know what they looked like in person? And then what do you think of anon culture in the space?
Yeah, interesting. So I think a lot of it just stems from people's desire for privacy, really, and a lot of sort of crypto ideology is very privacy centric, and so I think it's kind of natural that a lot of the developers choose to remain anonymous. I'm not the kind of person to absolutely obscure my identity. Josh is my real name, and plenty of people know who I am. But I guess it's just kind of like a comfort thing. It's you see kind of, especially on Twitter, people having like these enormous followings, and I think for some people it kind of maybe a little bit uncomfortable. But then there's obviously the flip side of that a lot of people, when they're investing their cryptocurrencies into protocols, they prefer to put a face to the name, that kind of thing. They a docs development team can be seen as a positive. So it's pros and cons really, and I can definitely understand both sides of it. I have met a couple of Anon people, but again, I don't think they're the super duper shadowy coder, use a completely false alias and IP address obfuscation, that kind of stuff. There's obviously quite a few big Anon names on Twitter, but absolutely no idea who they would be, and no idea if I was to meet them in real life, I wouldn't know. But yeah, I think, yeah, it's not really one day I just decided, I didn't want to be known. It was just kind of like a slow, gradual decision, really, that I just felt a little bit more comfortable, not being 100% broadcasted to absolutely anyone.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's been a kind of movement towards, because there's some people want to stay anonymous completely, and like everyone should have a right to privacy and being a non-dev or a non-creator of the space. And then other people have chosen to actually come out and have themselves in the public, because you gain a lot of it's more not responsibility, but accountability, and people are willing to trust you a bit more because you've decided to come out as a blackbird.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's I think with anonymous, it does take more time to sort of garnish that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that is the plan. My Twitter handle is mine, and I intend to build that reputation and use it for good. So I appreciate the trade-off of being anonymous or pseudo-anonymous.
Yeah, and we likewise have a few in our team that like choose to stay anonymous, and then others that are like the CEO and the co-founders, and they're all super public. So it's a mix on like what do you prioritize and what's right for you, and I think that works quite well. It's a good balance. Let's go back to the crypto space and DeFi, NFTs, JPEGs, whatever else, and away from ETHAmsterdam. What do you think is the biggest opportunity in the space right now, aside from Rysk finance? And show me your favorite JPEG as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so my very first, as I said, like my very first tinkering with Web3 was with NFTs. In all honesty, I'm not that massive a fan of the whole like JPEG profile picture movement. I think it's fun, and I think it's I definitely own a couple. I bought a tubby cat like 2 weeks ago, and I love my tubby cat. Yeah, what I'm really waiting for is the utility for NFTs to really take off, and the possibilities are, I think, only limited by A, our imagination, and B, really the user experience. Getting people to be able to harness that utility without knowing they're using a blockchain or without knowing they're using NFTs, because ultimately, I think this technology is not really going to take off and make it real mainstream until that happens. The UX of dealing with crazy wallet address strings and private keys and stuff, it's not feasible for the average non-techie. But yeah, I think NFTs have a long way to go, and I'm incredibly bullish on the future. And then in DeFi as a whole, that's where a lot of my interest is right now. Obviously, working in it full time, it's been absolutely mind blowing for me in the sort of 12 to 18 months I have been taking an interest. The absolute like exponential growth of the DeFi space. I remember in the first half of 2020, when it was all the kind of like what you would call, I guess, legacy like DeFi 1.0 protocols. It was Aave, Uniswap, SushiSwap, Maker, And that tended to dominate most of the conversation. And now there's, you could be full time just looking for alpha, talking to people, and you still wouldn't be able to keep up with everything that's coming out. And it's happened so fast, and it almost kind of like it's passed me by. Sometimes I have to take a step back and actually think like, bloody hell, this is actually happening this quickly. I'm incredibly looking forward to. I think there's limitless options in decentralized finance. I'm really looking forward to seeing these money Legos kind of build on top of each other and come up with some really cool stuff that just isn't possible in traditional finance. And we're already starting to see it with these new kind of financial derivatives and strategies that, we have things like Alchemix and their self-repaying loans. You tell a banker about that and they would tell you you're straight up lying. I think it's really cool. It's really cool. And I can't wait for more people to start taking notice and maybe start building stuff themselves.
Yeah, completely with you there. I think we are quite a few years away from everything becoming a lot more user-friendly. But one thing that surprised me quite a lot with this space is that things move way faster than I expected. I didn't think everyone would go crazy about Bitcoin blockchains and even Ethereum, NFTs and all of that at the start of 2020. Maybe the pandemic accelerated it a bit, but
yeah,
you wouldn't have not even dreamed, but you wouldn't have imagined this would have happened like back in 2018, 19 during the huge bear market and everyone was so disinterested. So it's quite cool to see how fast things have moved, and how many new people were in the industry and also trying to build different things. And so I think you've got all this brain power, all these people trying to work on random applications of finance, of even artwork or creativity or whatever else, that eventually there are going to be more cool things coming along. You don't know what you're going to see, but something interesting and something will kind of stick. And yeah, no one knows what that's going to be, but it's an interesting place to hang around and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as you said, it's going to be all about the user experience, right? We have these gigabrains kind of building these ridiculous protocols and games and stuff, but I think the real challenge, and it's something that I think isn't really being tackled enough, although people are starting to realize it, is just the user experience. And I think, maybe the best example so far of good user experience is something like the Argent wallet for mobiles. It's a very much like a Web 2 kind of very familiar interface, and the functionality is very limited, but it's friendly and it's not confusing, and it allows people a taste of what DeFi can do.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's I think they host a lot of the stuff themselves, and it's a bit very much Web 2-ish, but the way it's so easy to use and the way you can just, I don't know, like access lots of different networks, and you have a really kind of one wallet solves all thing with Argent. It's quite convenient. And I think, more stuff like that, which kind of keeps the whole decentralization mantra, all the Web3 kind of ideals, is ultimately a good thing for the people that we're trying to target and are trying to use these sorts of products in the future. So yeah, let's see where we go. And to wrap up, do you have a question for me? Anything you would like to know from my side? And yeah, anything else you'd like to share one last time?
I would like to just shill Encode Club. They've helped me in my Web3 journey. I've entered a handful of hackathons for them. I've done one of their boot camps for Solidity. All round great organization. If you're looking to get into Web3 and you're not sure where to start, definitely take a look at them. And I'm sure you know all about that as well, Dagan. No questions for you myself. I'm fortunate enough to get to hang out with you on a semi-regular basis. So yeah, that's it.
We'll see where in the world we end up running into each other again. But yes, another shout out to Encode Club for sure. I've worked with them quite a bit. We ran a hackathon with them. That's how we first met Josh. They are really good at teaching you the basics and fundamentals of Web3, and they work with a bunch of different protocols in the space. So that's Encode Club. They're cool. Check them out. And maybe we'll get someone from their team in one of the future Fairground Jams to have a chat with us about how exactly they're getting more people involved in the space. And yeah, that's the Vega Fairground Jam. Thank you all for attending. Josh, thank you for being a superstar and giving us your perspective on both Web3, on the Vega hackathons, and what it's like at one of these conferences in Amsterdam. We'll be uploading this on YouTube shortly after. And yeah, check it out again next week, next Thursday, where we'll be back with someone different to talk to. And if you're taking part in the Dodgems incentive, make sure you get trading, as that will be ending tomorrow. I think around, well, the timing doesn't matter because it's different in every country. But check out the incentive page on fairground.wtf and get involved in the incentive if you can, to help us test the network before we go live in the next few months. And yeah, that's it from us. Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.